Hello everyone, this is Pooka, and welcome to another Pokemon TCG video, and welcome to another edition of Expanded Friday, where we take a look at decks in the Black and White on format, currently Black and White through Phantom Forces. Today we're going to look at a deck that is just going to be around forever, in the expanded format, in the standard format, whatever, and that's going to be Yveltal. So Yveltal EX, ever since it came out, has been one of the most dominant Pokemon in the history of the Pokemon TCG. It has just been everywhere, and for good reason. Evil Ball does 20 plus 20 more, attached to each active Pokemon. So this is basically Mewtwo EX's X Ball plus 20, which means it's doing a lot of damage most of the time. And we also have Y Cyclone, does 90 and then moves an energy to your bench. Now, the reason this was so powerful in the first place was because Dark Patch. Dark Patch, the item card, allows you to take a basic Darkness energy out of the discard pile and attach it to one of your benched Darkness Pokemon. So we have Dark Patch back in the expanded format, which means Yveltal is that much stronger once again. This is really the key to making this deck more explosive, but I think the lack of Dark Patch in Standard tells you how good Yveltal EX really is. You lose this extremely broken energy acceleration card, and it still is really good. How does that work? Well, it's just because Yveltal EX is just insanely good. There's no other way to put it. It is just probably the best attacker in the game. So Yveltal EX, we're going to revolve our deck around this guy. We're going to put a Muscle Band on him, do some more damage. We're going to play Hypnotoxic, Laser, and then Verbank City Gym to add more damage. Just try to get big one-hit knockouts when possible. If not, try to go for a Y Cyclone, power up some other stuff while doing big damage. Now, we also have a couple of regular Yveltal. Just a great non-EX attacker. Has Oblivion Wing 30 and then acts as a Dark Patch. Gets a Darkness energy out, puts it on a benched Pokemon. And then Darkness Blade can be used sometimes, but probably not very often. It is worth noting that it's there, though I have used it a time or two. Now, the main partner for Yveltal EX, besides the regular Yveltal, is going to be Seismitoad EX. So those times when you just kind of need to slow the game down a little bit, Quaking Punch is for you. 30 and takes away item cards from your opponent. This will probably be most useful against like a Team Plasma deck that's going to try to like rush you down with like Lugia EX and Thundurus EX and such. Quaking Punch can slow those decks down pretty badly, taking away their item cards. And when you combine Quaking Punch with Hypnotoxic Laser and Verbank City Gym, well, the damage adds up quickly and it gets really annoying. So Seismitoad, very, very good in this kind of a deck. Good card in general, but a great partner for Yveltal EX most of the time. We're also going to have the standard Darkrai EX in here as well. You never know when Night Spear is going to come in handy, but we're actually going to use it more for Dark Cloak. Gives you free retreat if you have a Darkness energy attached to your Pokemon. That's pretty cool. A Night Spear can be used in a pinch sometimes to get some big double knockouts. Hitting 30 on the bench. Pretty good. But yeah, mainly for Dark Cloak. And since we do have Dark Cloak, we can also run Keldeo EX. So this allows us to rush in and then have a Darkness energy on Keldeo EX, and it can just retreat for free, which is just a combo we've had for a few years now, but it's still as effective. This is good against Hypnotoxic Laser, if you can't play a Switch or anything like that. So we're facing a Seismitoad EX, which uses the Laser and Quaking Punch. Well, we can rush in and retreat, just get right out of that poison. It's really good. Just great in general. Also, Excelgor exists in the expanded format, so having a Keldeo is pretty nice. Jirachi EX, we see this card being played more and more in Yveltal decks, and it's just a great consistency card to be able to play an Ultra Ball and then grab Jirachi for a supporter. Just a great utility card. And then if you'll notice, we are not running Garbodor in here, so we're actually going to be running Spiritomb instead. So Virizion Genesect has continued to be one of the most popular decks in the expanded format, and Spiritomb is a great way to counter it a little bit. Sealing Scream ensures that each player can't play any A-Spec cards. So what that means is they can't play G-Booster. And when Genesect isn't using G-Booster, it's a really mediocre Pokemon. It really is. And without that 200 damage option, you beat them pretty much every time. Now, sure, they can knock out the Spiritomb, but then you just get a free hit on their Genesect or whatever, so Spiritomb, certainly a difference maker. Alright, so we've seen the Laser Burbank, Muscle Band, Dark Patch. We're also going to get Enhanced Hammer in this deck. Sure, let's make it a little more annoying with Seismitoad. Enhanced Hammer, just great for slowing down all sorts of decks, along with Headringer. Just another great card to slow things down. Put it on one of your opponent's Pokemon EX, now they got to pay one more to attack. And it also stops a Muscle Band from being played on a Pokemon. They can't have more than one tool attached. So if you put a Headringer down on an EX before your opponent gets a chance to play a Muscle Band, that can be a real game changer, forcing them to pay one more to attack, and then also denying them the option to do 20 additional damage. Pretty cool. So Headringer in here as well. Our supporters are going to be 4 Professor Juniper, 4 N, 2 Lysander, 2 Colress, and then we're actually going to go with 3 VS Seeker. I love this card, and I think it's really good in this kind of a deck, where Skyla isn't always great in this deck, so we can actually afford to just run VS Seeker and Juniper over and over and over and over again. Pretty cool. We have 3 Ultra Ball in here, and then 1 Escape Rope for just an extra switching card in case Keldio's not cutting it, and then a Dowsing Machine as the A-Spec card, along with 4 Double Colorless and 8 Darkness Energy. So here we go, just a pretty straightforward Yveltal Seismitoad expanded deck with good old Dark Patch. You might be wondering, why not 4 Dark Patch? Well, I don't think you need 4, first of all, and even if you did, the regular Yveltal can fill in as a Dark Patch sometimes, do some damage and be a Dark Patch, so you don't really need 4. 3 gets the job done, especially with regular Yveltal. So alright, there you have our Yveltal Seismitoad deck, and let's take a look at it in action on Pokemon TCG Online. I gotta say, it is very difficult to find good expanded games on Pokemon TCG Online. It's a struggle. I feel like most people don't play it, and the ones that do end up being a lot of almost just modified theme decks, or people who just, I don't know, it seems like almost a step up from the theme deck or unlimited. Standard is where most people play, and then there's expanded. I currently cannot see what my opponent's active Pokemon is, so that's great. My cards have taken a long time to load since, I don't know, maybe there's an update or something. Like, look at that, it's just a blank card, and a blank card has a float stone attached to it in the active spot. I think it's a Trubbish. I'm still trying to figure out what that is. Alright, there we go, double colorless. But, man, I don't know why it's taking so long for everything to load now. And, alright, looks like we got another Yveltal deck, so this is not unusual by any means, but, yeah, here we have it. Just another Yveltal deck. Okay, so, here I have a weird hand. I guess I can Ultra Ball. I'm probably going to play the N here. I don't want to discard a bunch of double colorless turn 1. Doesn't seem like a good idea. Double colorless is huge for Yveltal EX and in this matchup, I suppose. So I'm going to drop down 1 on the bench with a Muscle Band. And we can also drop down a Headringer. And that will maybe slow down my opponent a little bit. And it'll definitely stop any like potential knockouts that could have happened. I don't think they could have happened anyway, but it's going to make it way more difficult. We actually see a Sableye come down. Don't see that very often. Kind of forgot he existed, but he is in expanded. And we can see him junk hunt for things. I think the game has kind of passed Sableye by at this point, especially with Seismitoad EX and the format. You know, if you can junk hunt for 2 items and then, well, you won't be able to play them against Seismitoad, but oh well. We do see a Darkrai coming down for the opponent as well. We'll have to see if Garbodor comes out. Could be a problem if that happens. I don't really know. All sorts of stuff can happen here. Second energy going on to that Yveltal EX with the Headringer. And, oh, we actually see a Confuse Ray. Huh. Now, I guess that could set up for something. Not really sure. I guess could set up for an easier Y Cyclone knockout or something. I don't really know. But all right, let's go ahead with the Ultra Ball here, and Keldeo is nowhere to be found. Keldeo. So I'm going to go ahead and Ultra Ball for regular Yveltal, and then put the Darkness on the benched Yveltal EX with that Dark Patch, and then play an N for 6. Thankfully, my opponent did not get Garbodor into play, so my Dark Cloak can activate still. And I'm going to go ahead and retreat into this Yveltal EX, and I have a choice. Do I Evil Ball or Y Cyclone? Evil Ball gets a knockout, but then I could just walk into a Y Cyclone from that Yveltal EX. It has the 2 energy on it. So I think Y Cyclone is actually better here. Seems to make sense to me. We're going to move the Double Colorless to the benched Yveltal EX that has 40 on it. I maybe should have taken another Yveltal EX with my Ultra Ball instead of the regular Yveltal, but well, you live and you learn. And I guess we'll have to see what happens from here. See a Pokemon catcher. What in the world? I thought that went extinct. Nope, Pokemon catcher is still legal. Flips the heads, and oh, that's going to be a little scary, actually. That Yveltal EX now has about 8,000 energy and can easily knock out the one I used Y Cyclone on. I mean, move the energy to with Y Cyclone. And Garbodor comes out probably a turn too late. You know, if that would have come down last turn, I would have been stuck. But thankfully, the Garbodor comes out a turn afterwards. But that means I won't have access to Dark Cloak any longer, which could end up being annoying. You know, I don't play Float Stone, I only have that 1 escape rope. I thought about playing Tool Scrapper in this deck, but decided to play other cards instead. We'll see if this comes back to bite me. So we do have Computer Search at this point, discarding a Darkness and a Keldeo EX. Opponent correctly assesses that Keldeo EX will be worthless since Garbotoxin is in effect. And then we see, looks like an energy went on to that Yveltal EX on the bench, and a Colress for 6, and a Dark Patch. So okay, this is the scary part of Yveltal in Expanded. You know, in Standard, my opponent would just pretty much have this big Yveltal EX active and wouldn't have one ready on the bench. So you couldn't make these crazy aggressive plays because you just wouldn't have an attacker ready for next turn. But with Dark Patch, throw all the rules out the window. We can just put a bunch of energy in play. Why not? Yay. You know, it's expanded. Dark Patch, yes. This should help you realize how ridiculously good Dark Patch was and still is. Alright, so here with the laser, I actually get a knockout on this active Yveltal EX. And I'm going to go ahead and play VS Seeker for an N and just try to disrupt my opponent a little bit there. And I have a Muscle Band. I got Seismitoad. I guess it won't really hurt to put down Seismitoad. I might have to use it at some point, I suppose. And, you know, I guess I could put down a Muscle Band, but I'd rather save it for an Yveltal EX. So we'll see how that goes. And, yeah, like I said, with the Hypnotoxic Laser, I am able to get that knockout on that opposing Yveltal EX, but now my opponent has an Yveltal EX of his own with 2 energy and a Muscle Band already. And, yeah, it's just not good. It's an awkward position to be in here. The 3rd energy goes on. Let's see, that's 140 right now. If we see a laser and a Verbank, I will certainly get knocked out. And it's just a matter of whether or not my opponent has that. I guess that's the point here. So yeah, this is going to be a little strange. Now we get in this awkward spot where we both used a reasonable amount of resources, and it's like, what do we do next? Can we just build up a big Yveltal and win the game with one Yveltal EX? I don't know. It's going to be a lot of battles back and forth. A lot of things can happen here. And we just see a Y Cyclone for 110 damage. That was probably a wise choice. You know, leaving that much energy on the active was not a good choice. It would have ended very badly for my opponent, I think. So that was a good move, I would say. And here, all right, let's see. If I evil ball here, it is 120 damage, which is not great. It doesn't set up for anything really, which is unfortunate. So let's see. I don't know what else to do though. I could retreat and Oblivion Wing. That doesn't seem great though. It's here where I probably wish I had another Yveltal EX on the bench, but oh well. I'm going to VS Seeker for a Juniper at this point and just Juniper my stuff away. Get a fresh hand of 7, see if I can get some other stuff here, and see what else we can perhaps manage to do. I do have, let's see, I have a dowsing machine, could do that, and I could get, there's all sorts of things I could get back here. I would say the two biggest things would be Dark Patch or perhaps a Head Ringer to put on that Yveltal EX on the bench. Just make sure he doesn't get too out of control. Head Ringer introduces some interesting elements to the game. First real card that we've been able to put on an opponent's Pokemon. Pretty cool. So I would say those are my two choices here. Head Ringer or a Dark Patch. And I'm going to go with the Head Ringer just because I don't feel like a Night Spear would be great next turn. And this is good for me. Evil Ball for 120 damage. And I wish I had Verbank in play so that I could set up for a potential Night Spear. You know, if I had the Verbank in play, I would have Dowsing Machine for Dark Patch. Because next turn I would have been able to Lysander out Garbodor and get the 3 prizes with Night Spear for the game. But since there's 40 HP left on this Yveltal EX now, it doesn't work. So it's annoying, but it is what it is. And here we do see the Evil Ball getting the knockout on my Yveltal. And we are entering weird territory at this point. You know, if I knew that Yveltal wasn't going to move, I suppose I could have gone for the Night Spear play as well. But again, you live and you learn. I'm going to go with the VS Seeker here. And I don't really know what to do. Man, I could grab a Juniper and just try to draw more stuff here. I would really love to get an Yveltal EX in play. But if I don't, I don't know. Let's see. I've used a couple VS Seeker now and a Lysander, so I might be out of those, but I don't know if I really need one anymore. I don't know. There's all sorts of resource issues we might have to deal with here. The question is just, do I end my opponent or Juniper for a bigger hand? I don't really know what the answer is to that question, but I'm going to go for an N. Going to go with reducing my opponent's resources at this stage. And we're going to go with the Oblivion Wing knockout, and I gave myself a pretty unfavorable hand. Oh boy. Fortunately, my opponent has 2 prizes left to take, and Yveltal regular only gives up 1 prize, and the Head Ringer is going to make it rather difficult to even knock out the active. If, let's see, ooh, a Pokemon catcher, that could be bad, though. Whew. Okay, Tails. Okay, thank goodness. That could have been game-ending, honestly. Bringing out the Seismitoad, that could have been really, really ugly. But fortunately, that was indeed Tails. And fortunately, we survive another day. Man, this is a very strange game. You know, that Garbodor is definitely coming into play. The Garbotoxin. Shutting off my Dark Cloak, benching Seismitoad could have ended me. Yuck, yikes. It's scary to think about. Those darn Pokemon catchers. Alright, so here I'm going to bench regular Yveltal since I don't feel like my opponent will really be able to have the time to knock out 2 non-EXs at this point. And I have a Dark Patch, but I don't even want to really play it. I'll just be able to Oblivion Wing anyway. I don't really want a Night Spear and walk into a gigantic Evil Ball for the loss. Seems pretty silly. At this point, I'm just trying to kind of like do some damage control in case there's an escape rope or a catcher. I'm trying to make sure that whatever gets brought out doesn't end up in me, having something stuck active. So I'm going to put just the darkness energy in the Seismitoad. If it gets brought out, I can double colorless and retreat and Night Spear. And that's the point we're at right here. I can just Night Spear for the game on this active. And, I mean, it has 110 HP left. I have the Muscle Bane on the Darkrai on the bench. So we have set up the win here. But my opponent could still win. Like a Pokemon catcher or a Lysander. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4... I think 140 right now. Catcher or Lysander plus a double colorless actually knocks out the Darkrai on my bench. But we actually just see a retreat into Garbodor. What am I seeing? What is going on? I am not really sure. But that pretty much gives me the game here. I'm going to retreat into Darkrai and Night Spear for 110 damage and take down my last prize. That was a confusing last play there, but you got to think my opponent was in a pretty big disadvantage anyway if he had to retreat to the Darkrai instead of the Garbodor. So probably just decided to go for that and just, push his luck. I don't know. Rough spot either way. But hey, at the end of the day, our Yveltal deck trumps the Yveltal Garbodor deck, and we get a mystery box. So we get to see what's in the box. What's in the box? What's in the box? It's tokens. Why is it always tokens? All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will certainly have some more for you soon. I am Pooka from the Top Cut, and I'll see you guys next time.